Hi everybody, it's Colin, and today I am going to show you the steps that I took to change a photograph. I'd actually posted a blog earlier today about a situation that arose during my weekend away with my Nampa group last weekend when we were out in Chincoteague. And the subject came up when I asked them if they were getting the kind of shots that they were hoping for, that they were a little bit disappointed because their shots never looked the same as the professionals. I'm not quite sure, how us professionals uh, are able to do that with anything, given the same subject matter and cameras that do the same job. But I think perhaps it's just a case of knowing a little bit more about post-processing. So when I asked what that really meant, most of the people there said, well, you know what? Our images don't look to have the same impacts. They're not the same color. They're not as sharp. And, they just look better than the ones that we come up with. And when one of the attendees showed me the picture, well, it was kind of lucky because I'd photographed the same egret the same time of day. Actually, we all did because he was the only egret and subject matter we could find that particular sunset. Okay, so we all ended up with about the same picture from about the same position. And I already looked at the image on my own shots and thought, well, you know what, this is actually a nice photograph. It just needs some help. It always needs help in RAW anyway, which is, as you can see, what I photographed in. Um, but when I started to show the attendees my post-processed image compared to what they had been showing me, they achieved, some mouths hit the jaws hit the ground. There were oohs and ahs, and you know what? All that I'd done was taken a couple of minutes of post-processing to get an image from where they had it to where I liked it, where it had a lot more impact. So that's what I'm going to show you today. My blog earlier, described that. So what I'm going to do is take you through the steps to show you how I edited this particular picture. It is up on our screen right now. It's in a RAW format. We are in Lightroom in the Develop module. And one of the first things that I always do when I import a raw image into Lightroom is that over on the right-hand side, I scroll down and I look here where it says Profile. Currently it's set to Adobe Standard, and this is the default that you get when you import a raw file into Adobe. If you click where it says Adobe Standard, you get this list of options where actually are the same as your cameras. So because this particular image needs a lot of help, I choose the most colorful of these, and that is Camera Vivid. As its name suggests, it adds a lot of color. And as soon as I click it, you'll see it gives me a pretty good end result, even without doing anything else. Now on my white balanced or color balanced monitor, I can see that this is a little bit too yellow. Even though it was a setting sun and it was the golden hour, for me this is a little bit too yellow. So I'm going to adjust the white balance here. And I'm going to do that by clicking on the dropper tool and finding a point on this image that is going to give me a good white rendition. So when I place the dropper in an area which is kind of neutral, and it doesn't have to be white, by the way, it could be a gray or any portion of the image which is as neutral as you can find it, which means that as you look at this grid that pops up, you'll see that at the bottom of the grid you have red, green, blue channel percentages, and these read at the moment 83, 79, and 64. Well, that's a little bit off for me. What I want to try and find is a place where they run fairly even. So I just kind of move around this until I find something. So let's have a look at this. We've got 83, 80, and 64-ish. So right about there, I think is about as close as I'm going to get it. And you'll see that once I click, we've gone from really yellow to really, really bright white on this particular egret right now. Now, egrets are white, so this is just about where I want to be. So we've got rid of a lot of the yellow cast that we saw. Even though it was the golden hour, I'd rather, in this particular instance, get a white egret. Okay, so that's my first couple of steps. I want to boost the whites a little bit. I really want to make this egret stand out. So you'll see over here on the right hand side of my develop panel, that I have white, so I'm going to boost those just a little. I'm going to take these up until I can see some changes here. So I think we're good about there at around about the 14 mark. That'll give us a little bit of white boost. And I want to take that a little bit higher just to give me some highlights. Give me a little bit more. Highlights will do anything that's kind of bright in the image. So highlights I'm going to take up there just a little bit. There is some shadow detail which I'm wanting to pull out too. So I'm going to pull the shadows out just slightly. So you see where it says shadows here. I'm going to drag that slider a little bit too. And I'm good about there. Okay. Already I think you can see that this image is starting to pop a little bit. Give it a little bit more of a pop. I'm going to boost the exposure. Not by very much. I'm going to get it to about, if I can move the slider just very gently. That's a little bit too much. A little bit not enough. Kind of a challenge with the mouse that's getting stuck. So I think I'll be done around about there, about 0.36. It might be a little bit on the bright side. But here's the thing. Actually, a couple of things. The first thing I'm going to do is, one of my next steps, I always add some clarity. Now, clarity down here where it's under presence, and what this does is it boosts mid-tone saturation, edge colors, or saturation between edge colors. So it has the effect of actually looking like it sharpens the image. It doesn't, but it looks like it does. Okay, so I want to add some clarity in there. And my final step here, or actually my next to final step, is I want to crop this. A couple of reasons. I want to bring more emphasis to the egret, and at the moment my eye is wandering up into this blue area of water that is behind this mound of grass, this little island that he's on, and I want to get rid of that. So I need to crop this image. And by cropping it, I can also drag him perhaps into a better location within the rule of thirds. Okay, so if I pull him over to about here, and I want to keep a little bit of this white down here too, but I want to get rid of more of that blue in the background. So I'm going to leave him just about there. He's not perfectly on the rule of thirds. I like to get his eye line perhaps, or his shoulder on the rule of thirds. So maybe about there, okay? And click done with that one. So by getting rid of that disturbance in my vision at the top part of the image, I've also pulled that image as if I'm zooming further in. And to give it a little bit more emphasis, to give him more emphasis within the picture, the final thing I'm going to do is give him a vignette, and I say him, meaning the image. So over on the left-hand panel, we have the Lightroom presets, and I really like this vignette number 2. And when I click on that, you can see that it darkens the corners, almost like it puts a spotlight more on him. Now, the spotlight is actually an oval within the center of the image, but because he's so bright, you cannot do anything but look straight at this egret now. So when I compare these side by side, let me just pull that up. You can see there's a really, really stark difference. And if I go to full screen on this, you'll see a little bit better the difference between where we started in a raw file and where we ended up in an image now that's ready to export as a JPEG. Okay. So we've gone from a pretty plain looking image into one that I think gives a lot more impact to this particular egret, this bird that was just kind of sitting there waiting for us all to take his picture. So I hope that's given you a little bit more of an insight into the way I look at images. You know, when I'm looking at particular images, I maybe take more than 10 to 20 pictures of this bird at a time, waiting for them to move, waiting for them to show me some kind of gesture or movement. And that's what I hope to capture. This guy was just sitting there. So this image did need a lot of help, and Lightroom came through on that for us. Okay, more to come in a little while, so I'm going to finish processing this, get it posted for you, and I will be back in a while.